Welcome, everybody, to this afternoon's session. Thank you all for joining us. The session is on Fan Engagement 3.0. My name is Max Wright. I'm ex-IMG Endeavour and former Chief Commercial Officer of IMG Arena. We're going to be looking today at the effect of AI, immersive technology, social media, and Web3 on the way in which clubs, leagues, and sports organizations interact with their fan base. And joining me, we've got a fantastic panel of experts. I'll let them introduce themselves, starting with you, Steve.
I'm Steve, at FIFA, audience growth strategist. I've been at FIFA for over a decade, working across a digital marketing group, effectively on all the topics you just mentioned, sort of, but also social content, performance marketing, CRM, SEO, other acronyms are available.
Maria, I'm CEO and founder of Weaver Labs. We have nothing to do with football. We're a telecommunications company, and we deliver network as a service platforms for venues that require integration of networks and edge compute platforms. And hopefully, I will get to explain a little bit what that means in terms of value generation. But yeah, excited to chat about the possibilities of AI and data-driven innovation in stadiums.
Hello, everyone. My name is Mariano Otero. I'm the Senior Vice President for Business Development for Fever. We're a technology company that does a lot of ticketing and marketing for clubs around the world. And of course, worked a lot on fan engagement and the way we interact with people who are going to the stadium or buying experiences related to football clubs. So very, very eager to speak about that.
Afternoon, I'm Hugo. I've lived on both sides of this coin because I started an agency running creator campaigns across the influencer marketing world over the last 10 years. Grew that business to 600 people, sold it to WPP, and then bought a football club because that's what you seem to do nowadays in non-league, and are going up the pyramid as we go. So I'm learning about fan engagement after running fan engagement for the last 10 years from a different side of the coin.
Thanks, guys. Please welcome our panel. So we've got a lot to cover this afternoon, and getting right into it, I'm going to ask each of you, what does Fan Engagement 3.0 mean to you? Maybe starting with you, Steve.
Yeah, I think it means giving fans and giving users, whatever you want to call them, some sort of, ownership or some sort of credit, I guess, when it comes to the brand, whether you're talking about clubs, whether you're talking about players, whether you're talking about, organization like FIFA. It's about making sure that they have some sort of equity in that. Either that's literally through tokens somehow, or that is through innovative storytelling and making sure that they are emotionally invested in that as well. That's how I would see it from my standpoint anyway.
Maria, what's your take?
For us, fan engagement means bringing people back into the stadium. Nowadays, we're competing with living rooms that are really comfortable, and people have access to all of the screens, all of the technology, social media, analytics, and the match is no longer the product, the experience is. So for us, Fan Engagement 3.0 means how can we bring all of that digital ecosystem within this place so that we can offer something very different than what they have at home.
But you coming at through a live lens?
Yes,
as in
it
person.
has to be different from what they experience outside of the venue.
Mariano?
We tend to think about it in terms of, we talk to a lot of clubs around the world. Some of the most successful sports organizations in the world, like Real Madrid and Barcelona, are our clients. And the thing we know is that there's a limit to what they can achieve on match day. So we like to think about Fan Engagement 3.0 as like, what else is there? What additional value can you capture from your fans that it's not related to them going to an actual match that it's already going to sell out, that already has its season pass holders, that doesn't really have that many additional fans that you can bring into. So we want to think about fan engagement in the sense of like, how do I maximize the amount of value that I'm getting from these fans and that the fans are, of course, getting from my club, not just on match day, but for the entire year.
Yeah, okay. Harry?
And for me, we have always tried to make people feel something. In advertising and in marketing, it's always been about making people feel something, whether they're happy, they're sad, they're excited, they're disappointed, whatever they are, they're always going to remember something much greater if they feel something towards it. The worst reaction to anything that we ever do is someone that doesn't care or is nonplussed or doesn't really engage with something. So from our club, we're obviously a much smaller club than the Barcelonas, the Real Madrids. We sit in the 7th tier of English football. So again, getting people through the gate is really important to come and watch the games in stadium. But for us, it's about building a global brand that's beyond that through the likes of social media. We're now the 32nd most watched YouTube channel in English football. We're the 40th most followed TikTok account in English football, despite being 7 divisions below Liverpool, who sit at number 1. So, for us, it's about building that international fan base, connecting them to a local fan base on a club that they may never have heard of before, buying that merchandise, and starting to create a 360 fan from a standing start.
Turning now to the topic that we've heard a lot today, which is the increasing role and influence of AI, and thinking particularly in the world of fan engagement about delivering AI and personalization at scale. Mariano, how is FIFA using AI to match fans with immersive experiences? And I'm particularly thinking about the casual fan who might not be a season ticket holder already within the ecosystem.
Yeah, totally. And maybe just a quick 1-minute plug on exactly what FIFA does and why this is a relevant part of our business and something that we're actively working on. Fever is a live entertainment company. The goal is to build the marketplace for discovery of any type of live entertainment. If you guys get the Fever app and you go to Amsterdam right now, you're going to see that we sell things from classical music to like an F1 exhibition that is happening right now in the city to different concerts and other immersive experiences that are here in the city. And we complement that basically with a big asset that we have built called the Secret Media Network, which is it's a network that it's sort of replacing what Timeout used to do. So if you guys, some of you are my age, if you go back 10, 15 years, you would get the Timeout magazine, come to Amsterdam, try to see what's there. Right now, that role has been taken over by the Secret Media Network. The Secret Media Network is a collection of more than 300 sites designed for the age of social media, very shareable, very Instagrammable, like at the end of it, very, very adapt to these new technologies that is reaching about 300 million people every year. So with that, every month. But with that scale, what you're getting is that ability to leverage tools for extreme personalization. And that is really what Fever's working on, right? Like what is the type of content that this person will react to that it's gonna get them to buy a ticket. And again, that might be for a concert, it might be for a show like the F1 exhibition, the Messi experience, all things that we've worked on, immersive exhibitions that we've worked on, or it might be a ticket to any one of our football clients which we're selling tickets for. The idea there is that these tools are allowing for that personalization, and that personalization is basically increasing the return that you're getting on advertising, the likelihood that a person is going to go through a funnel, the likelihood that they're actually going to show up at the stadium, right? So you've got, what you need there is this massive volume of data that is allowing you to basically get real insights and statistically significant insights into what is feasible, what makes a difference, and then act on that, with the right technology, so that you can deliver that personalized experience. We're seeing that all over the place. I think one place where we think it's particularly relevant. Again, some football clubs can't actually sell more tickets, but they can always sell more tickets to their basketball teams, or they can always sell more tickets, particularly to a very growing sport, which is women's football. So how do you find those reasons for people to buy tickets? How do you find those ideas that are going to get that person through that funnel? That is where we think AI can play a very, very distinct role in thinking about creative design, in thinking about content generation, all the way to pricing, which is a very interesting area as well, where there's a lot of innovation.
Turning now to FIFA, Steve, how is FIFA thinking about making fan engagement authentic and personal rather than a generic message?
Yeah, I think the best example of this, or one of the most pertinent examples of this, I think, is sort of social content creation. We can leverage AI. For instance, we have an amazing archive with the World Cup, the Women's World Cup, and Soon we will have a great archive with the Club World Cup as well, coming this summer. There's the first plug, there you go. The main thing for us is that we can leverage AI to jump into that archive, to select the right moments and to create highlight content, you know, from linear feed from the past, right? Or any of the multi-angles that we've had available to us in previous editions. And that's how, you know, we can help video editors, we can help content creators. That's, you know, something that we can do at scale. However, we still need to have this authenticity where AI potentially isn't going to be a massive help, where we have, there's still a place for curation, is what I'm trying to get at, really. We have the most recent, really high-performing content that we've seen across our channels has been collaboration with a creator called 𝐄𝐧, or a group of creators called 𝐄𝐧, who create this amazing, you'll have seen it if you're on social with football generally, amazingly curated, sort of slow-mo, the right angle. Takes a long time, which works really well with embargoed sort of footage and content generally. Works for beach soccer, works for you know, for Real Madrid. It works for all formats for us. So the main thing for us is like basically using AI in the right place so that it doesn't seem robotic and it seems, you know, the right thing. You're expecting quick cut clips from highlight packages in the past. Absolutely, let's use AI for that. But we're still seeing that curated, the necessity for curated content as we develop continuously the content planning for future events. Of course, the guys making those edits will use AI in some capacity. It's not just like, okay, image selection or whatever else, but it's just like picking and choosing. And the last thing I would say on that is that we're lucky to be able to do that, right, at FIFA, because we have the resource to be able to do that, to use it as a tool to help video editors, real video editors. And I know that that's not the case as you get either further down the pyramid or even in other big organizations where the content teams are not as vast. So that's how we use it. So it's not so, I don't know, like generic or robotic as you mentioned.
Harry, you mentioned a moment ago about the disproportionate success that Farnham Town's had in terms of its following, in terms of how you're ranking. What would be the playbook in 2025 from a creator point of view in leveraging creators to reach audiences? What would you say should be the methods that every club should be using? And then perhaps as well, if you could touch on it at the same time, I mean, you've been in this space for a long time. What have you seen clubs and brands doing that is suboptimal, and how could they potentially improve on their mistakes?
I think we're kind of through the time where people try to get overly clever with creators, and there was a period where everyone wanted to get a creator to do something with their club or their organization, but it was like taking them somewhere, just showing them something without really giving them an experience to show off, or giving them something their audience would actually genuinely care about, or something that was authentic to them. And that's such a cliche thing now. We say we need to make content that's authentic to the creators, but I've seen so many examples, especially in football, where you get a creator or an athlete or whatever it might be, and they don't kick a football into a goal. And that sounds so simple and boring, but that's the content that does really, really well. You know, we want to see athletes and you want to see creators doing things that you can relate to, but also doing things that make great clips. So getting players playing football and getting creators playing football is great, and we've seen that with success of like the Sidemen charity match, which just sold out Wembley to 90,000 people, and they've got a huge amount of draw, but 2.5 million people go and watch it online live on YouTube, as well as packing out Wembley Stadium. And they've done that over the course of the last few years at different stadiums, and I'm sure that will continue to go on tour as they take it out of the UK. But for me, it's about keeping it as simple as possible. I think lots of brands overthink it. I think there's a huge amount of opportunity with the creators, but it's gone from being less about exactly what content they create, but about involving them in the different things that you can showcase, but also respect them as key talent, because I think a lot of the time, and we've seen it over the course of the last 10 years, they've kind of been through this wave of people knowing that they're important, but not quite giving them the respect of a Cristiano Ronaldo or a Messi. Now, obviously, they're a complete tier of their own, but they get treated in completely different ways, despite these guys having the audience that these clubs or organizations really want. So they give them like a suboptimal experience. That might be from how they get picked up in a taxi, or all the little things that really make a difference. And you can get lots of these times, these guys are going to be contracted to certain deliverables, certain amount of posts on Instagram or Instagram stories or TikTok, whatever it might be. The experience you can give these guys as elite talent will increase the chances of you over-delivering on the contracted deliverables. So I think that's kind of the playbook we always went for. We want to make sure they get picked up in a nice car, they get looked after by a senior person, they always get access to the best stuff possible. We will turn down opportunities if they don't get that access, not because we're divas, but because it's better for the brand. It's better that they get access to it. Look at last night as the VIP event here. It's so much nicer going actually onto the pitch. You actually get access rather than just being in a conference room, which is also really nice and it's an amazing stadium, but actually being able to stand on the pitch felt like an exclusive opportunity, and you're more likely to take a photo, share it on your own Instagram account. It's exactly the same with talent, so you've got to think about that all the time.
Interesting. So you're saying that you've gone to all the trouble of booking the right talent.
And spent tens of thousands of pounds. Just give them the perfect experience.
Yeah.
Go above and beyond.
Interesting. Yeah, no, I can completely see that. Turning on now to in-person experiences, you touched on it in your introduction, Maria. Weaver Labs works on infrastructure that underpins live matchday experiences, and perhaps you could tell us a little bit about your work with MK Dons and Milton Keynes. How are technologies like 5G and edge computing shaping those in-stadium fan experiences? And what does this now unlock for clubs and fans in terms of capabilities?
So you made a great point, and it's that you can't sell more tickets, right? But you can increase the revenue per person inside of the stadium. And that is through driving experiences and better ways to deliver a service. And there is where traditional infrastructure falls quite short. And if you have a good Wi-Fi network, even the best Wi-Fi network is not going to deliver real-time enhanced experiences through video, through data analytics, or through immediacy. And then the other option is to use traditional mobile coverage, but at least in the UK, in the majority of stadiums, that's really bad. And especially when you have 40,000, 50,000 people coming into the stadium. So private 5G, edge cloud, and good computing power allows stadiums to have the ability to host differentiated services that can then be paid for. Leverage AI to deliver that personalization that we want to get. Actually, infrastructure is the pipes to deliver all of these value that we want to. I was literally just, talk about smart stadiums, and no one mentioned connectivity. How are we going to be smart if we can't translate data from A to B? So what we have done in venues in the UK is deliver what we call a platform that enables business. And it's a platform for innovation. It delivers a 5G private network, fully integrated, and an edge cloud compute that sits within the stadium. And through partnerships that we have developed during the years, we host, you can call it like an app store of applications that are already integrated in the ecosystem and deliver value to the fan in the form of an AI assistant that is delivering insights real time to the fans about the match and how can that impact the end result. Multi-angle camera view delivered again to the phone so that the person who's sitting at the up top of the stadium still has an opportunity to see the goal from where it happened without waiting to have to go home and check their Instagram account. We also integrated with a company that does 3D mapping. So you can navigate around the stadium, and if you actually want tacos and you don't want a burger, you don't have to go to all of the food stalls, and you can go straight to the tacos. And at the end of the day, what it means to have all of these applications integrated in one single platform is that you can share information across, and that truly enables personalization. Now, all of a sudden, I know if you went for a taco, I know how much time you've spent on your seat, and I can prompt you to stand up and go and do something. Or maybe you're not the type of person that are going to stay in your seat, and I can do something different. I can use this information in a different way. The other thing that we did is we pivoted the other way, and we said, how can networks learn from the user experience? And we can do that because the network is fully software-based. So what that means is with AI, the network can reconfigure itself to support a 40,000 people connected, 10,000, or a hotel network, or whatever is the use case, fully reconfigurable.
And when you say that, because you say the network can reconfigure itself, like for the uninitiated like me who are not yet completely conversant in AI, what exactly does that mean? How is it reconfiguring itself? How is it learning? What are the inputs? How does that actually work in practice?
So the network has about 10,000 parameters that can be tuned to create a good experience.
Right.
However, the real user experience is only measured at the end. Is your video stopping? Are you having like the big squares when you are talking to someone? That is what we don't measure in the network, but we need the feedback from the application. So we've done partnerships with very large social media providers that give us real-time that data. And we understand if your video call over WhatsApp type applications was good or bad, if your experience on Instagram is good or bad. And we put that into an AI machine that all of a sudden from those 10,000 parameters tells us, tweak this and this and this other parameter, because that's what's going to have an impact on that user experience.
Yeah, okay. Excellent. And Mariano, FIFA has created everything from candlelight experiences in concerts to immersive exhibitions. Could you give us some example of some soccer, football-related experiences that go beyond the match and offer that immersive and unexpected interaction with fans?
Yeah, for sure. And I would start by saying, even if not related to soccer, we're sitting in some of the most expensive infrastructure, physical assets in any given city, right? Like right now, the stadium in any given city, one of the most expensive pieces of infrastructure is the local stadium. And those local stadiums are used on average about 20 times a year, right? For a regular stadium, that's how much it gets actually used, right? So it means that there are 345 days every year where that stadium goes unused. And of course, stadiums are trying to bring in new business. They're bringing in the Taylor Swifts, Oasis, but those things don't scale, right? Like you can only have so many of those concerts. Like at the end of the day, those concerts are never gonna go to the secondary cities, like the smaller cities, right? Like it might come here, but it's not gonna go to Utrecht or it's not gonna go to Haarlem, right? Like, so how do you leverage those stadiums? So that's one of the problems that FIFA started to think about a couple of years ago. And the concept that we developed is this concept of what we call scalable experiences, which is basically things that could work on any given city. You mentioned candlelight. Candlelight, for those of you who don't know, it's a concept that we created about 5 years ago, which is basically a concert by a string quartet, professional musicians and everything very high quality, but at the end of the day, it's in a generic venue, so it doesn't require any specific type of venue, and it's not necessarily well-known talent, meaning you can do, hundreds of these every day. That series called Candlelight Concerts grew, starting in 2019 in Madrid. It's now present in about 600 cities around the world, and this year alone, it's going to sell about 12 million tickets. It has become the biggest franchise of classical music in the world, right? A concept that didn't exist. We actually have done this at stadiums. We did it in Sevilla Stadium, we did it in Atlético de Madrid Stadium, because again, those stadiums don't actually get a lot of other activities, so they're trying to look for. And the opportunity here is not just monetize this event, get some extra income, some extra ticket sales, but it's actually how can you bring a different audience to the stadium? Because the people who went to a candlelight in Sevilla Stadium, 70% of them had actually never been to a football game in the stadium, right? Yep. And there's a lot of myth about the stadium experience, what it's like. Is it good for families? Is it good for me? Am I gonna feel safe? Am I gonna be happy there? And bringing people through other types of experiences is a great way to break that. So I think that's one thing, right? Like, again, we've got these mammoth assets all over the world. How do we monetize them more? How do we create more content that can be scaled? And Candlelight's one example. There are more than 10 different projects that have adapted to different types of stadiums. I think the second one that you were mentioning is more, how do you leverage new technology and this trend of immersive exhibits in order to expand the reach? And I think the opportunity there is, I mean, we always tended to think about football clubs as something that's very local, right? Like other, other than Chelsea and Manchester United and Real Madrid and maybe Ajax, like there aren't really all that many global clubs, right? Like clubs that have a fandom everywhere and that can extend their brand. And that is something that we see as an opportunity. And that is basically a typical brand extension strategy where like you're taking your brand, you're taking your assets, and you're building something that can tour. And that could be something like what the Messi experience did, which is a global touring experience based on the life of Messi, which is doing very well. It's gone to from Miami, which is where it started, of course, but it's gone to South America. It's now in the Middle East, Chicago, Philadelphia, several cities. So that's a concept, right? Like you're taking an IP and you're extending that IP. The Barcelona exhibition, another concept, like that's more a little of a touring historical museum, if you want, and doing very well, successful in Mexico, successful in the US. We're seeing a lot of those concepts. And then just general brand extensions, right? Like how do you plug in your brand to a concept that already works, which again, could be an exhibition, could be something related to a concert, and then basically use that to develop local fandoms that at the end of the day are adding new revenue lines to your club.
Interesting. Maybe we could get a candlelight concert happening at Farnham Town, Harry.
It would be fantastic.
we can commit that, yeah.
Perfect.
Steve, turning to you for a second and thinking about, it's not really a trend anymore, but I think we all do it every time we do anything from home, is that second screening. And what about making match days more immersive from home? Have you experienced anything through FIFA in terms of watch-along channels or gamified content, and what are you seeing that's worked there?
Well, I think we try lots of things, especially we're quite lucky in our position that the world's focus is on FIFA.
Yeah.
I mean, the world's focus is on FIFA all the time, right? But like, without sounding too big for our boots, but the world's focus is really on FIFA when the World Cup comes around, the Men's World Cup comes around. And now with the Women's World Cup and the Club World Cup, we're hoping those tent poles are also as high. But when the World Cup comes around, we can definitely, we have the world's focus there. So we test things year round. We have under 17 World Cups, we have under 20 Women's World Cups, we have tertiary events where we try things with watch-alongs, with streamers, with influencers, with creators. We also have draws for each of these events, for the larger events as well, where we try similar things. Talking about gamification really is the big thing when we think about fan engagement. When it comes to an event, when we're talking about the website at least, or registrations around the website, so when we see the biggest surge in registrations for our website and for our owned and operated experiences, effectively. So fantasy is the biggest one, obviously.
Yeah.
I mean, pretty much everybody who's involved in football generally has either played fantasy football at some stage or still does. You have one bad experience and then you miss a season and then you go back. Probably that's my personal experience anyway. But the other side of it as well is like, we have a section of the website where it's not just this fantasy element, but it's also, and the app, I should say, not just website, app as well. This fantasy element, but it's also other things which draw people in, predictors, bracket challenges, and trying to give people agency over something that they can't have agency over, which is the result of a match, or the team being selected by the manager or whatever. So it's going back to my initial point about investment in a brand, in an organization, in a football club. This is the way that we can do it, is to give agency to these users, to these individuals. And when it comes to the events, this is when we see the biggest uptick in that. It's how we get users on board, and that's how we then obviously try to retarget them and reach them in that 4-year cycle, in the 3 years that we don't have them, or 3.5 years that we don't have them outside of the World Cup cycle. So that's kind of the biggest trend that we see that comes back every single time. And that's why we're doubling down. Again, another plug, the Club World Cup. This summer, we'll be testing a lot of new gamified concepts on the app and website. So, yeah, we'll watch this space.
How do you look alongside like the Baller League that's done really well in the last few months in the UK? It was obviously really successful in Germany, and they've got loads of streamers sort of watch along on Twitch. Obviously, the rights are very, very different with FIFA. How do you see that like growing alongside the streamers for the actual Men's World Cup and, you know, primary events for FIFA, because like that's going to be such a big trend as streamers become bigger and bigger rights holders in some ways. You look at 𝐼𝐚𝐧 𝐄𝐧, like these guys are pulling million people a night in. They're like the biggest TV shows in the world. You know, how can FIFA work with them as like a media rights distributor as well as the network channels?
It's a great question, and I wish I had the answer. I think it's but I think the main thing really is, I'm going to try and give an answer. The main thing really is like there's this I don't know, this thought process behind Gen Z or like this younger generation that the attention span is 6 seconds for a TikTok. And it's like it's just nonsense. Really, it's nonsense. The sort of the ceiling for commercialization for this audience is so high because they sort of, I don't know, there's this misconception that they have such a short attention span. It's not true. If you give them the right content and you give them the right engagement, they will stay for a long time. So it's a challenge to us, as I guess you're sort of getting at, really. It's a challenge to FIFA and a challenge to sort of legacy organizations and rights holders, etc., to find the right concepts, to find the right content. I mean, Baller League, it's an amazing example of a challenger, I think. Whether FIFA would jump straight into a Baller League concept when it comes to that is another question. But I think trying to find different concepts is definitely on the radar for FIFA. Absolutely. I mean, there's the Club World Cup in itself this summer. Again, sorry, I keep plugging. The Club World Cup this summer is a brand new concept. It's a brand new event. The tournaments are scaling up at FIFA generally in terms of having an under-17 and under-20 every year for both men's and women's, expanding into a futsal women's World Cup as well. This is basically expanding what FIFA's inventory already is, but I think in those pre-existing inventories, if you like, or pre-existing events or whatever, I think there's definitely scope to try and experiment with new things. And that's what I was getting at before, is like, we have these opportunities when the world's eyes are not massively on FIFA at U17 tournaments, U20 tournaments, at futsal, beach, whatever, to experiment and to try brand new, fresh things. And if it hits with a certain audience or a certain type of audience, then yeah, let's ladder that up to a Club World Cup, a Men's World Cup, a Women's World Cup, etc. So yeah, I think like it's about finding the right concept for FIFA to jump into. We are traditionally have been very conservative because we can be. You know, like everybody watches the World Cup, so it's not a problem for us. We don't have to really take many risks on that front. But that shouldn't stop us from being innovative or trying new things. And that's our group anyway, the digital marketing group anyway, is always trying to innovate when it comes to those, I don't want to call them smaller tournaments. I've just come out of my mouth, so sorry. But the youth tournaments and the futsal tournaments, the beach soccer tournaments.
That's the
attempt
place
to
where you
innovate.
can do the innovation. Is
Absolutely, yeah. And that's where like we really do need to keep innovating. And that's where you bring in those new creators, you bring in those new faces, you bring in those new concepts as well. Yeah, so I think it's an evolution rather than a revolution when it comes to FIFA, as always. But I think it's always good to put the cat amongst the pigeons, and I think Baller League and other concepts like that have definitely done that. Yeah,
I mean, we worked to launch like the FIFA E-World Cup, which was a great, innovative move for that kind of creator, streamer, football crossover. So yeah, that makes sense.
Let's talk again about technology for a moment. And Maria, we mentioned Web3 in the introduction. I don't know a huge amount about it, but could you just give us a quick idea of how that would be built into your business model and your workflow, and then the role it plays in powering those fan experiences that you use it for? So
for those who are not familiar with the concept of Web3, it relates to distributed ledger technologies. Some people know them as blockchain. It's one of them. And what it means, it provides trust in an untrusted environment. Yeah. So you and I do not need to know each other or do not need to trust each other to transact. Right. Because the consensus that exists within the network computes a proof that what you are delivering is what it's aligned with the value of that network. So that's the concept. And blockchain or Web3, it's delivering ownership at the end of the day, which you mentioned at the beginning of your talk, and I actually really like that. Because people talk about, blockchain as kind of like a gimmick. I'm going to give you a token as a value. But what actually is giving back the people the ownership of their data, of their identity, and potentially ownership of a part of the club that they love, or a part of the event, they can vote, and it all of a sudden creates a sort of engagement that it is all recorded in an untampered place, right? It cannot be, and it can be transacted as well, right? With NFTs and real world assets and things like that. So I never say it, but we are actually a Web3 company because our infrastructure sits within what we call an open marketplace, where what we do is we tokenize connectivity assets.
I see.
So what that means is that, for instance, in Milton Keynes, one of the companies that is delivering the video streaming to the phones is using peer-to-peer Web3 type of sharing, so that every phone is acting as a node, or you can add more nodes and address things like latency, congestion, and things like that. And when they come into our network, what we are doing is we're selling them a share of connectivity. And what it means is that I prove within a blockchain technology that I am giving you the amount of megabits per second that you need to provide that service in the stadium. So what that means is completely decentralize the number of services that can come into the stadium. It can create marketplaces that are agile, are flexible, and micropayments that exists with a very, very granular type of KPI, right? So at the end of the day, a smart contract or an NFT is a computer program that executes a reward based on a condition. So it's as simple as that. And then young people are very familiar with it and will engage with Web3, blockchain type, crypto coins, and things like that. So it is another way of drawing in young people because they speak that language. But it's an enabler, it's a technology at the end of the day. It's not the end, it's just a way to.
And we've touched on tokens and digital collectibles and NFTs. Could you tell us what FIFA's view on all of those are, Steve? Are they gimmicks or are they here to stay?
We'll say that they're here to stay because we've got the FIFA Collect Marketplace, which is available. So it's an interesting concept. I think it's something that has evolved in the last little while with FIFA. Definitely is, as I mentioned just now, is like we don't need to be innovators in this space, which I think actually stops innovation within a business, obviously. So I think it's really good that we have dipped toes in the water and then sort of jumped into the pool, I guess. The FIFA Collect Marketplace, what we've kind of done most recently, or what the guys have done most recently, is sort of twin that with ticket offers and being able to, have access to World Cup tickets or Club World Cup tickets. And so it's about, again, it's that agency, that ownership of the, not just of the tangible ticket that you get at the end of it, but also the fact that you're a part of the event, you're a part of the tournament somehow. I think the only other thing I'd mention on that in terms of tokens, collectibles, whatever, is like the World Cup is such a scarce event. And the Women's World Cup and the Club World Cup, they're scarce events. It's once every 4 years. So that scarcity is something which if you tokenize that, if you like, and are able to monetize that, the archive is so scarce and so valuable. If you're able to monetize that in a token format, then you're going to have success. And the guys, the team definitely, FIFA Collectors, like I said, it's evolved, and I think that's where we can see value is you have such a scarce product, such a scarce event, tournament, a thing that means so much to so many people. From their youth, we were talking last night about how amazing it is, the memories you have of the World Cup. If you can sort of bring that scarcity into a marketplace, I think that's probably the evolution of that and why it's becoming successful now. And like I said, the other element is that sort of bundling element in terms of ticket purchases and right to buy. So you don't buy a token and get a ticket. It's like you buy a token and you get first dibs on being able to buy a World Cup ticket potentially. So that's the kind of offers the kind of thing that we've seen the FIFA Collect Marketplace evolve into in the last little while.
Interesting, and it's interesting how we've naturally come on through engagement onto monetization, because I think that's ultimately where it ends up and is the most important aspect of all, really. How do you turn that engagement into, firstly, loyalty, and then ultimately to repeat ongoing commercialization opportunities? Mariano, what's the biggest opportunity you see emerging here, and how do we ensure that that's long-term sustainable and not a short-term hype event?
Yeah, and I wanted to pick up on Steve's comment of scarcity, right? Because the World Cup clearly a scarce good, 4 billion people want to go to it, want to go to one game, maybe 6 billion people, I don't know, and only
I would say 7,
yeah,
8.
only a few, maybe tens of thousands actually get to go, right? Like, and that's true of the majority. Well, the majority of top tier football sort of lives that way, right? Like, and in economics, when you have a scarcity problem, the easy solution is you just increase the price, right? But ultimately, this is a living ecosystem of fans, people who have been followers of this club for 50 years, like, the local community. And so in football, you can't do that, right? Like, and I think the question is like, then where is the upside opportunity? And, a lot of the things that we've been talking about are exactly that, whether it's monetization through tokenization, the use of the stadium for different things. And what we see with the advent and big inflow of institutional capital over the last 10 years in football particularly, that is the challenge that clubs have ahead of them. Like, they need to understand how they're going to make more money. Because if you can't raise the prices, if you can't increase the capacity of the stadium, if your match day revenue is television is a decreasing line of revenue for the majority of the clubs, where is that going to come from? And that's where, I think the creativity has to come in, and the use of technology is the opportunity, because the use of technology unlocks new revenue lines. The use of technology allows for a better utilization of an asset, allows you to grow your fandom, to grow your reach, to sell more merchandise, to sell more in-stadium food and beverage, whatever that might be, right? Like, and so I think the challenge for the next few years is how do we incorporate that technology into elements that are actually helping us increase our top line.
Excellent. And as we're approaching the end of our time, I want to get a sense from all of you. Maybe you can give it in a couple of sentences or just, a very short form, but what do you see as being the next innovation, maybe something that's underhyped that is going to emerge within the next 12, 18, 24 months that is going to take people by surprise and become the next, the next big thing? Maybe starting with you, Harry.
I think for us, obviously, we've had to bat well above our weight from a football club perspective, and try and monetize things has been much harder starting in the 9th tier of English football and working our way back up. So, for us, it's been about creating characters. I did it at my agency as well. We hired a team of videographers and editors to follow us around every single day of our lives and upload a vlog on YouTube every single day to basically show what our agency was doing. It helped us drive £5 million of track revenue in a 12-month period and grow our business from 50 people to 150 people, inside that 12 months. Because people started to empathize and understand exactly what we were doing as characters in building a business and kind of striving for a goal. We try to create and have created that at the football club as well. And I think that's massively underappreciated, how much people buy from people, even through a digital standpoint. And we hired a similar set of young guys who wanted to build a documentary behind the scenes at a football club, understand how it works, in the boardroom, in the dressing room, the very similar thing to what we see with Wrexham. Wrexham's documentary, Sunderland's documentary, All or Nothing on Amazon Prime. We're doing it on YouTube for free every single Friday, and we're building characters of people that have never been seen before. Footballers in the 7th tier who people are now queuing at the tunnel when they come off the pitch to have autographs and photos with, and want to buy their shirt. And these things don't happen unless you build stories and make people feel something, which is what I said right at the start of this discussion. And for us, I think the most underrated thing that we've created both at the agency and at the football club, and I appreciate there's probably people in this room who are representing football clubs that aren't Barcelona and Real Madrid. It's about building characters both behind the scenes, on the pitch, and making people feel something towards those people so that they can begin to monetize them because they're genuine fans. They want to come back, they want to get involved, and they want to engage in everything they do. So that, for me, is the most underpriced thing, because it's right there on your doorstep. You can do it tomorrow. You can start filming. You can start talking about things that are behind the scenes and build characters in your organization.
Thanks, Harry. And then Mariano, same question to you. What's the next big thing?
And I'll also go back to how it started, right? Like, which was basically this idea that we have to think about the fan and the the hardcore and the casual fan, and we have to think about them in a 360 way. So it's not just about match day. It's not about just when they come to the stadium and they support the team. It's about what they're doing and how do we get to them. I think we have a big blueprint, whether we like it or not, in how American sports were run for a long time, because I do think that it's football that's going to look a lot more like the American sports data a few years ago than the other way around over the next few years. And so thinking about that, thinking about all the opportunities, all the avenues of monetization that they built, and how do those extend to football, I think that is where the change is going.
Interesting. Same question to you, Maria, really quickly.
What's more underrated than infrastructure? But I do think that instead of fan experience being a content revolution, it is an infrastructure revolution. If you own the infrastructure, you own the data. And if you own the data, you can act on it. And it's not only about targeting the fan, it's also about managers and clubs using all of that data to make their teams perform much better. And what's better user experience than having your team win? Because you've used data and you've gathered lots of insights. So I truly think that this infrastructure revolution is going to help fan experience.
Absolutely. And then finally, Steve, and you can't mention Club World Cup.
Well, I was actually going to go straight in.
That's impossible. That's impossible.
I was going to go straight in with the Club World Cup about Americanization and all that stuff. Now I've got to think something else. No, I think the main thing for me, I'm just going to watch and learn from these guys over the next 12 to 18 months as we build up to the World Cup. And as I said, FIFA can sort of sit back and have a look at what's being innovated in the football space. But in genuine terms, like American sports and the American sporting ecosystem is something that we are jumping into, and we will be jumping into in the next 12 to 18 months. So learning an awful lot from that in the next 12 to 18 months, and we already are, is going to be super exciting. With some event, I don't know what it's called, in the summer in the US, and then we've got obviously the Men's World Cup next summer in the US, and also Mexico and Canada. So that's our sort of homework really, is watching, learning, and growing in amongst the American ecosystem in sports over there.
Thank you, Steve. So as we wrap up, I want to thank our panel for their thoughtful insights this afternoon. And I just want to finish by saying that I think it's become really clear through what our panel of experts have been saying that clubs, sports organizations, rights holders need to be thinking more than ever about being entertainment companies and even extending themselves into being technology companies as well, or they risk being bypassed in that ability to engage and interact with the fan. So please give a big thank you to Steve, Maria, Mariano, and Harry for their perspectives, and join me in giving them a round of applause.